Hey folks, I'm JC from One Shot Adventures, and today I'm going to return to the Alien RPG with a full review of Heart of Darkness, a cinematic one-shot adventure that takes the players to the edge of a black hole filled with unthinkable alien horrors. Now, in Heart of Darkness, the PCs play a group of scientists that are sent to this remote space station to investigate what appears to be a new form of life. Of course, once they arrive, they quickly discover that something has gone horribly wrong, and the survival of the human species might depend on their actions over the next few hours. Complicating this adventure is that every PC has their own personal motives, which will sow distrust and paranoia among the players. Now, I love the Alien RPG. I think it's one of the best RPGs for one-shot adventures, and Heart of Darkness is the newest one that came out about a year ago. Now, while Heart of Darkness was written as part 3 of a 3-part campaign, it works great as a standalone one-shot and includes all the things that you'd want from a one-shot adventure, including pre-generated characters, handouts, and a massive map of the space station that the players will spend most of their time on. Well, if this sounds interesting, then hurry up and grab your cat and get ready for some serious spoilers, because not only am I going to give you a full review of Heart of Darkness, but I'm also going to give you GM some tips and tricks on how to run this one like a pro. Heart of Darkness was written by sci-fi novelist Andrew E.C. Gaska. Now, for full disclaimer, I haven't actually read any of his novels. There appear to be a lot of Planet of the Apes ones, and that's pretty cool by me. The whole adventure comes in a beautiful box filled with wonderful components like maps and cards and pre-generated characters, all with really interesting backstories. It's a lengthy 60-page adventure, but the playtime of this adventure is really going to vary. I actually finished it in one session with a small group of 3 players who were all very laser focused on their own survival, but I can easily see bigger groups or methodical players taking 3 or even 4 sessions to get through it. So this one's going to depend a lot on your player count and the personality of your players. Like I said up front, Heart of Darkness is the finale of 3 loosely connected adventures. It was a campaign that started with Chariot of the Gods, continued with Destroyer of Worlds, and now ends here. But you don't really have to have played in any of those adventures to run or enjoy this one, and none of the characters really carry off between them. Much like those previous adventures, Heart of Darkness draws some themes from Prometheus, as well as the original Alien movies, Alien 3 in this case. I'm still mad about the beginning of that movie. The setup of the adventure is this. The PCs are a group of hired scientists paid by Weyland-Yutani to investigate a new form of life, a xeno-extremophile called the Hezbollah Lights. The lights were discovered in a black hole near Erebos Station. The station found these living lights surrounding a meteor, and so pulled the meteor in to study it more. So the PC's mission is to go to Erebos Station, study these lights, something that the company is very excited to learn more about. Here's how company director Michael Bishop briefs the PCs.
That black hole out there is magnificent, isn't it? And living in that swirling plasma soup is a xeno-extremophile. They're calling the Hezbollah Lights. Erebos Station observed them swarming around a significant meteoric mass in the plasma field. So we gave the green light to anchor the meteor to the station for study. We'll brief you more on the meteor when you arrive.
Like you'd expect, this mission is not going to be as straightforward as it sounds. Right away, the PCs discover that Erebos Station is not a science observatory, it's actually a high-security prison, and one due to its proximity to the black hole, that can cause severe mental breakdowns. Surprise! Second, the meteor that Michael Bishop describes was not actually a meteor. It's a shuttle from the Cronus, the starship that was lost decades ago during a mission that discovered a virulent pathogen. This is actually the link to Chariot of the Gods, by the way, the scenario where the PCs explore the derelict of the Kronos and discover at some point in the mission that its shuttle was missing. Well, once that shuttle was brought on board Erebos Station, so were its monstrous inhabitants. A multitude of horrifying Prometheus-style creatures such as trilobites, deacons, and a new entry here, the full freman, a form of evolved life that is telepathic and generally hostile to humans. So chaos broke out on Erebos Station before the PCs arrived. Lots of people were killed, and the prisoners mostly escaped. And soon, the station itself started transforming into a living hive, a hive that eerily beats with the sound and the pulse of a heartbeat. And this is where the PCs literally crash into the adventure. Moments after approaching Erebos Station, the black hole surges and pulls their ship into the space station, doing severe damage and tangling it all up. The ship can crash into different parts of the station, but either way, the PCs will quickly realize that this station is trouble. Not only is it overrun by aliens and transforming into a hive, but it has two factions on board who hate each other. The Warden Styx and his corrections androids, and the prison leader who's now escaped, Flo, and her gang of loyal convicts. Years ago, the Warden framed Flo for something, which got her locked up here, and now she wants revenge on him, despite the fact that she's surrounded by an alien incursion. Heart of Darkness is structurally divided into 3 acts. The adventure provides some key events that happen in each act, but it's largely up to the GM to figure out which ones to use and when to use them. There's an unevenness to these events in terms of importance, like some are absolutely critical to the adventure, and others are just really atmospheric. I wish the adventure made a little bit more effort to tell the GM like which were which, but it's nice to have lists of these to use in case the players need something cool to happen to kind of push them along in the general direction they want to go. The flow of the adventure also heavily depends on the personal agendas that each PC has. Each player is dealt a secret agenda at the beginning of the game, and then there's more that are going to be given to them at the start of each following act. And at first, these agendas play out kind of innocently. For example, some of the PCs arrive knowing that Erebos Station has a secret spy program running on it, Project Ironfish, which uses the nearby black hole as a kind of antenna to spy on inhabitants of worlds that are hostile to the central government. And those PCs are there to steal the Ironfish data in addition to studying the life. Another PC is there to uncover what happened to her long-lost great aunt, who disappeared in the area. And others are there just for scientific curiosity. So the first act of Heart of Darkness is going to play out with the PCs crashing into the station, exploring it, meeting the key NPCs like Warden Styx or Flo, and assessing damage to their ship. The PC's ship can be repaired and extracted from the station, but it's going to take a few key items, such as new fuel cells, a new thruster compression coil, and lots of manual work to cut free. So this adds some reasons for the PCs to explore the station beyond the ones that are in their personal agendas. The second act will trigger when the PCs discover and get attacked by a proto xenomorph on the station, a deacon or some other creature like that. The tension increases and the PCs are soon telepathically contacted by the full freman, that evolved form of life that is also on the station. And the full fremen demand that the PCs find the live virus that helped create them, the 26 Draconis strain. Okay, so let's talk about the full fremen some more. One of the criticisms of the Alien RPG is that outside of the xenomorphs and a handful of other monsters from Prometheus, there's just not a lot of variety in the monstrous foes that you're going to face. But in this adventure, with the full fremen, we finally get a new one. They have a really cool origin too. They were accidentally created when the crew of the Cronus tried creating a cure to the engineer's black goo. The cure worked, kind of, but instead ended up creating a new breed of mutants, which after you took this vaccine, you would just turn into an abomination, like a zombie-like creature, which would eventually vomit more goop out and cocoon themselves and evolve into the full fremen, who are the antagonists in this adventure. Unfortunately, the full fremen are not really fleshed out here, and the adventure really suffers for it. They're described as these hyper-intelligent, telepathic beings that are part of a hive mind, but their only motivation is to go infect other worlds, so they're actually not really that much more complex than any other alien creature that you'd expect in this universe. And this is why the full fremen want the 26 Draconis strain, so they can use that cure to go create more of their own on other planets. But destroying the universe is sort of just a weak motivation for what is supposed to be a hyper-intelligent form of life. And they never actually act hyper-intelligent in this adventure. They kind of just wander around, blast the PCs with some telepathic messages, and then eventually get angry when the PCs just stop listening to them. In fact, the full fremen sometimes just seem outright stupid in the adventure because the 26 Draconis strain, the one that they're looking for, is actually hidden inside their own meteorite shuttle where they came from. It's in a crewman that's still frozen in cryosleep. This bothers me a lot. Here are the full fremen, this intelligent, evolved form of life, and they even know how to use FTL because they're planning to go to warp or whatever and visit other planets, but they never bothered to look inside their own ship with someone who's infected with the virus that they're looking for. And worse, one of the full fremen is an evolved version of an actual survivor of the original expedition, and likely remembers how they created the virus and what they did with the virus.
My fellow super-intelligent, hyper-evolved full fremen allies. As you know, we have been looking for 10 years to find a live virus so that we can populate our species. Despite our massive intelligence, we have been unable to find it anywhere. We've looked in every nook and cranny of this station.
Yes, and some of you who've read the adventure are going to point out that the adventure does say that the full fremen are beyond human comprehension and can't detect life inside cryo chambers. But come on, they're asking for a virus, so clearly they have some comprehension of scientific concepts. And how are the PCs supposed to give them a virus? How do the full fremen even know it's real unless they have some kind of scientific viewpoint on the world? Can the PCs just hand them a vial and say, here's the virus, or a hard drive? It's all just a little sloppy. And worse, the full fremen don't actually do anything that's scary in the adventure other than that telepathic communication with the PCs. Most of them just kind of wander around the ship, and one of them is the relative of one of the PCs is actually willing to befriend the PCs and help them. So I ultimately found the full fremen just disappointing as antagonists in this adventure. So I made a few modifications to the full fremen that you may want to steal. First, I made them a little scarier. Whenever the PCs would see one of them, I had their brains just filled with this horrifying, paralyzing static from the telepathy that these things were always giving out. It effectively disabled anybody who came near them. And also, once you've been contacted by the full fremen in this way, I gave a +1 modifier to the neurological disorder rolls, the NDD rolls. These are these sanity blasting rules that this adventure has that the PCs have to make to avoid the black hole's weird psychological effects. This way, the PCs feared the full fremen and really wanted to steer clear with them, knowing that eventually too much contact with them would drive them all insane. Second, I changed it so that the full fremen are very clear that they're specifically looking for a human specimen with the live 26 Draconis virus still inside that person. So they're looking for a person, not just a vial of vaccine. And that they impart to the PCs through their telepathy that they know that the victim isn't aware that he has the virus because they detect people's thoughts, and so they know this person doesn't even know that they have the virus in them. And so this makes the fact that it's a guy in a cryo tube like a little bit more believable, and also makes it simpler for the PCs. Like they just have to find the guy with the virus who doesn't know he's got the virus. It just makes that whole quest just a lot more achievable by the heroes. Now, anyway, back to the adventure. Very few player groups are going to try to make the evil aliens happy, so they're probably going to figure out a way to defeat the full fremen and their monstrous minions like the deacons and the trilobites. Well, the adventure gives a few options here, like flooding the station with toxic gases or self-destructing the station. It really wants the PCs to create a necrotic virus that can just wipe out the full fremen. The station's dead science officer, Clerk, left a bunch of partial logs around the space station describing his work to do just that. Now, I don't love this mechanic. It feels very video gamey to like wander around the station and hit every computer to collect little bits of logs. I'll describe how I fixed that in a little bit. The third act triggers when the station has fully turned into a living hive, which threatens to take control of the PC's ship's FTL drive, which means the station can now travel to other planets. And making matters worse, soon the station begins falling into the black hole. So with a sudden, very urgent time limit upon them, the PCs have to escape Erebos Station. The adventure has lots of options for escape, including like reprogramming the station to thrust away from the black hole, contacting other nearby vessels who can save them, repairing their own ship and disentangling it, or hopping on board a lifeboat, which is likely infested with more proto xenomorphs, but that's an option. Of course, at this point in the adventure, many of the PCs will have slowly descended into madness from the black hole, and their agendas will likely pit them against each other, with some PCs wanting to help the full fremen and others wanting to destroy the station, willing to go down with it. And with aliens everywhere, the station plummeting into a black hole, the PCs ready to backstab each other, there's a very good chance that you're going to have no survivors here. When I ran this adventure, we had a wonderful finale. It was so tense, with the players like betraying Warden Stikes and killing him seconds before he was going to betray them. And then they fled the station running as fast as they could to a rescue craft. Just as everything was breaking apart, they were fighting off a hungry trilobite that was chasing after them and an angry full fremen that was mind controlling them. It was a crazy close call, and we only had 2 survivors, but man, it was a strong, epic finale. And I love that the adventure comes together in that sort of conclusion. Okay, so it took me a while to assemble my thoughts on this adventure. There are so many parts that I like, and yet there's a lot of it that I found frustrating. Heart of Darkness is just a complicated, messy adventure. There's just no getting around that. You have a massive, complex space station with like 10 levels of rooms and corridors and different systems to operate. You have competing PC agendas, competing NPC factions, story cards, constant checks for psychological issues, and that's all layered on top of a fairly complex plot. And the layout of the Heart of Darkness book is just a mess. Like, it doesn't make any of that easier. There's lots of key information that's spread out all over the place. Some of it is hidden in NPC bios, some of it's in call-out boxes, some of it's in the agenda cards. Like, it took me many times to read this adventure before I felt like I could run it. And even having run this adventure just a week ago, I had to read the adventure a few more times just to put together this video summary in a fairly cohesive way. But I don't dislike this adventure. I did have a lot of fun running it, and my players said afterwards that they found it fun and really tense. This is one of those adventures that could have really used another editing pass. It just has too many moving pieces to run out of the box without a lot of prep. For experienced GMs, there's a really nice sandbox here. You'll read it, you'll throw out a bunch of elements you don't like, you'll add a few of your own twists, and as your players explore the station, it's very likely they'll have like a rip-roaring time. But if you try running it straight out of the box, or if you're a new GM, there's just a lot for you and your players to juggle, which risks too many sessions to complete this one for what is supposed to be a tense horror game, or players being unsure what to do next or coming up with a plan that the adventure doesn't really cover. So to help you GMs out, I've assembled my top 5 tips for how to run Heart of Darkness and make it pretty great. Number 1, pick characters carefully. All the pre-generated PCs have secret agendas, and some of them will put players in direct opposition with each other. This might be fun for some groups, but not for others. Also, competing agendas can slow the adventure down as PCs separate a lot or constantly want to pull the GM aside with some like secret plan. Be especially careful of Hedenstrom and Sajad, both of whom will eventually side with the aliens. Personally, I like the combination of Lark, a really interesting synthetic, Navarre and Drabakowski, both of whom are invested in recovering the secrets of that Ironfish spy program. Ejin is easy to throw in as well since he just wants to save his friends. But pick those characters carefully to make sure you're going to give your players the type of adventure that they're going to enjoy. Number 2, mark the map ahead of time. Erebos Station is massive. It's like got, I don't know, like it's probably got 50 to 100 rooms across 10 levels. So before the game, I actually printed out a copy of this because I have the digital version as well, and I inverted it in Photoshop so it's black and white, not green on black. And then I spent an hour or so marking the map with the locations of all the key NPCs, the critical repair parts that the PCs needed for their ship, where the aliens were hiding. This was well worth my time and made me able to GM this adventure that much more smoothly. Also, while I did end up playing this over a virtual tabletop, if you're going to play over the real tabletop, like get a piece of plexiglass. You can usually go buy one at Home Depot or a hardware store and put it over that poster map that comes with the adventure, and then let your players loose with like whiteboard markers so they can like mark everything as they explore. And this is going to really help them get familiar with the station. It's going to make it feel a lot tighter. And they can see where they've been and where the NPCs might still be hiding. That will just make it so much more fun. Number 3, emphasize that the PC's ship can be repaired. So when the PC's ship, the Seterina, crashes into Erebos Station, I found that my players just immediately thought that their ship was screwed, that it was permanently destroyed, and it was a catastrophic crash, and they were just stranded there. And this actually isn't good, because finding parts to repair their ship around the station is a key motivator for getting the PCs to explore all the different parts of Erebos. So soon after the PCs crash, have an NPC crewman announce that, hey guys, the damage is not as bad as it seems. Like getting untangled is going to take some time, and there's a few pieces that we need to work on, but we can extract ourselves. Because once the PCs know that, then they're going to think that that's an option. Otherwise, they just might not. And also, once the PCs know how to repair their ship, this is a great way to have the PCs have to negotiate with some of those key NPCs. Because Flo, the crazy leader of the convicts, she's and her group have taken over the machine shops, which is where all the cutting tools are that the PCs are going to need to disentangle their ship. And Warden Stykes and his squads of corrections androids have control of the fuel cells that the PCs need. So by planting this information early that the PCs need those things, this is going to get the PCs immediately negotiating with the factions on the ship, which makes the adventure a lot more fun because they're going to see the tension between the convicts and the prisoners, and they're going to find themselves in the middle trying to be convinced to help either side, which is a really cool part of this adventure. Number 4, simplify Clerk's logs. Science Officer Clerk left 10 logs throughout the ship. Not only do these logs tell the PCs like what's happened on Erebos before they got there, but it also contains critical information how to create a necrotic virus that can wipe the full fremen off the ship. The adventure tells the GM to feed the players like information from these logs whenever they find a computer terminal. Like, I get the sense they want to just like hand out a little bit at a time, but this is dumb and feels like very artificial. When I ran this adventure, I just chunked the log into 2 pieces. The first time the PCs found a terminal and tried to research stuff, they found the first half of the log, which tells a lot of the story, but not the whole thing. But then I said, like, the data was corrupted, like the damage to the station, like that computer terminal couldn't access the rest of the data. And then the PCs can now go to another terminal, which you can either specify, or you can just say any terminal, depends on what you want to do, to get the rest of the log. They can then read the entire log. Getting all of Clerk's information to the PCs like earlier in the adventure just like helps the PCs understand what's going on that much better. They just have more knowledge, and that knowledge will actually speed up the rest of the adventure because now they know what critical decisions they're going to have to make. Do they want to create the virus? Do they want to just get the heck off the ship? Like they'll have more context earlier on, and that's like really important for such a complex adventure. Number 5, go easy on those NDDs. The neurological disorder rolls, those are the rolls that the players have to make to avoid the black holes like sanity blasting effects. I really like this concept in the adventure that as it goes on, the players are eventually going to kind of slowly go insane. I'm a big fan of Call of Cthulhu. I think it works really well here. But you have to be pretty careful with these rolls. The book doesn't give you a lot of guidelines on really how often to do this. And I've read some accounts from GMs online that have maybe done this too much, and their party is like a bunch of paranoid, violent, crazy people halfway through that are like killing each other. So just don't go overboard with these. There's enough madness on the station to keep your players engaged. And the agenda cards already do a wonderful job of making the PCs distrust each other. So my suggestion is to limit the NDD rolls to no more than 3 times over the course of the whole adventure. Like maybe at the start of Acts 2 and 3, and then again at the finale of the adventure as the PCs are like running for their escape route. This also works really well if you take my suggestion that the full fremen can telepathically surge humans near them, which gives a modifier to their next NDD roll. That way, there are fewer rolls, just a couple through the adventure, but more consequences to them if you've been around the full fremen during the time of exploring the station. This works so much better. Just go ahead and use this. And I promise the adventure is going to go that much more smoothly, and the agendas are going to drive the conclusion of the adventure, not just random sanity effects on a table. Now, I said I would have 5 bonus tips, but I have 6 bonus tips because I'm a company agent and I always lie. Tip number 6, use banter cards. Banter cards are a little technique that I use to kickstart like cinematic one-shot adventures. Right after Michael Bishop gives his introduction, hand the players a card with a few sentences on it. Each player picks a blurb and either reads or rephrases it in their own words. Then the players go around the table repeating this until all the core information of the scenario is out there. This is just a wonderful way to put the opening of the adventure into your players' hands so that you as a GM are not reading like a page of backstory to get players going. It plays out like a little scene from a movie, and I've always found that my players really enjoy it and it helps them get into their characters a little faster. You can download the banter cards that I wrote for Heart of Darkness on my website, oneshotadventures.com, and also lots of other additional components that I've made for this adventure, like that cool audio from Michael Bishop that I had created, as well as some extra tokens. Check the link in the description below. Oh, and while you're at it, go ahead and punch those like and subscribe buttons like you would an airlock control at the end of an Alien movie. Really helps out this kind of channel so that I can do more reviews and tips like this video. And those are my thoughts and best advice for Heart of Darkness. Like I said, there is a lot of good stuff in this adventure, but it is unfocused and it takes some thinking and prep for it to run really well. Hopefully you found my tips helpful. If you've played Heart of Darkness or run it, I'd love to know what your experience was like. Let me know in the comments below. Did you have any survivors from Erebos Station at the end of this adventure? Would love to know that too. Until next time, I'm JC. And just remember, if your job sends you to the edge of a black hole on a little research mission, you might want to rethink your career choices.